Tonight on the Vince Dow Show, we will be taking the SappyValues political compass test. It should be fun. Will I be exposed as an alt-right fascist? I don't know. We're about to find out. That's all tonight coming up. Stay tuned. We are live, not really, but we are here from the great state of Florida. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Vince Dow Show. I am your host, Vince Dow, and before we begin, everyone be sure to leave a like and subscribe right now to the channel if you are new. We do this show live every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so be sure to, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so be sure to join us. Now, the reason tonight's episode is not live is because currently I will be at Anthony Sabatini's launch party for Congress over in Central Florida, so I'll be, private event, networking with people, so, doing the game, doing the business. So we're doing a pre-recorded show for you tonight, so sorry about that. We'll be back live tomorrow night, but I figured tonight, since it is pre-recorded and since it's hard to kind of follow the news when it's not breaking, I decided tonight instead we will take a political compass test. Now, the test and specifically we'll be taking tonight is called the SappyValues political compass test. How is this different from the regular political compass that everyone is familiar with? Well, we've taken the political compass test like several times on different streams here and there. I don't think we've ever done this test before. And then supposedly this test is actually supposed to be better because the political compass test is, full of, stupid questions and all that stuff. I've not taken this test, but I heard that it's better. So let's do this. FYI, before I begin tonight, if you want to send in a super chat, I know we are not live, but you can still send in a super chat if you want to support the show. And I will, hopefully if I can pull them up, I'll try to respond to them or get back to you tomorrow, or maybe even tonight in the live chat, because I might be able to access the live chat tonight. So I might be present in the live chat at the time of premiering this, so I'm not sure. But all right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into the SappyValues test. I am pre-recording this live for the members. So what's up, Jonathan Fields? Good to see you, man. All right, let's get started with this. Okay, SappyValues test. All right, let's read the description. It's okay, it's cut off, but I will read it for you. SappyValues is a political compass test that combines the questions of SappyValues with a UI of 8 values. Blah, 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 46 questions. They're saying it's good. All right, so let's take this SappyValues political test. Hey, listen, journalists, you watching? Okay, if I come out as a alt-right fascist, then that's feel for you. All right, let's do this. Click to start. It is time. All right, you will be presented with a series of statements. For each one, click the button with your opinion on it. Proceed. I guess we'll do unshuffled. We'll do the test in order. All right, let's do it. Proceed. Unshuffled. All right. So we got obviously agree, disagree, all that stuff. Question. Let me crop this. Oops, my bad. Let me crop this a little better so that way it's easier to see. That probably looks better, right? All right, yeah, I think that looks better. All right, question number 1. Actually, wait, that's probably perfect. Okay, question number 1. Freedom of business is... Wait, now it's all... Okay, let's just do that. All right, question number 1. Freedom of business is the best practical way that a society can prosper. I mean, I guess so. Freedom specifically of business. Well, I suppose in a sense, I mean, I generally believe in markets. I believe that, that they are the best way to organize resources and all that stuff. I don't know if it's the single best practical way a society can prosper. I mean, you've had quite a few prosperous societies. I can think of empires in human history that were not total capitalist utopias. But then again, I think there was still some degree of, like, you know, free business, free flow of goods going on. But I don't know if it's the best way a society can prosper. I think in order to prosper, a society doesn't even necessarily need total freedom of business. What it really needs is, you know, some degree of, like, virtue and competence, etc., etc. So I don't know. I'm gonna say neutral, I suppose. I mean, I do generally believe in a more free market, but is it the most important thing? Is it the way a society needs to prosper? Actually, wait, what? Hold on. Why is the mouse not showing? Wait. I want you to be able to see my mouse. Can I show my mouse? Capture cursor. Yes, it's on. Why are you guys not able to see my mouse? Oh, there it is. Okay. Charity. No, question number 2. Charity is a better way of helping those in need than social welfare. I mean, strongly agree with this. This is, especially in the United States, this is typically the case. The welfare state sucks. The entire thing is organized incompetently. The entire thing itself is just completely incompetent and a mess and a disaster. So charity is definitely better. Anything is better than the social welfare state of the United States. And so that's a no-brainer. Strongly agree. Wages. Question number 3. Wages are always fair, as employers know best what a worker's labor is worth. I mean, probably, like, not 100% of the time, because you have also business owners and employers that themselves are not, you know, they're not competent, they're not totally competent, they're not robots, they don't always know, you know, exactly what is happening. But I would say that this is generally true, right? I'm not a fan of the whole, oh, raise the minimum wage type of thing, because I mean, in some places, basically, I guess $15 is kind of the minimum wage. But for the most part, wages are determined based on the value of that labor. Now, there are exceptions. It's not a 100% accuracy, whatever it is. But people out here, I saw this video from this communist the other day, and he actually is a communist, like hammer and sickle and all that stuff. And he's complaining about how people who bag groceries are, they live really hard lives, and they're not paid fairly. It's like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that it is that people who bag groceries, you know, make no money virtually? It's because the value of their labor is not very valuable. And first of all, anyone can do that, right? It's not that it's an easy life, but anyone can bag groceries. It takes about maybe 30 seconds at most of training, right? It's a job anyone can do. And so considering it is a job anyone can do, there's no degree of skills, there's no degree of particular, you know, a significant amount of value that is generated by the job. Yeah, I mean, of course, bagging groceries is not going to be an incredibly lucrative life, of course. And then I saw they're underpaid. They live such... Okay, then go learn a skill, right? Go or go figure out how to do something that is unique, right? Because uniqueness brings value to things. And so, you know, this whole minimum wage, all that stuff debate, I ideally would like to see everyone in the United States make a living wage. Don't get me wrong. We all want that. But just the idea that in general, people are not paid more or less a wage that is representative of the value of their labor, that's ridiculous. There's a reason the economy keeps turning. Now, perhaps with ESG and all this stuff in the future, that won't be the case, because at a certain point, you'll have these diversity, equity, and inclusion officers that bring no value to the company, making 200 grand. But assuming we are in a normal state of a normal economy, you know, this is generally the case. So I'm going to say agree to that question. All right, question number 4. It is quote unquote human nature to be greedy. Yo, what's up, Zeb? Good to see you. It is human nature to be greedy. I mean, I strongly agree with that. I'm a Christian, obviously, and so I believe sort of in the fallen state of man. And so yeah, I think it is absolutely within human nature to be greedy. Now, the framing of this question might be trying to say, oh, well, that's why we need to not endorse capitalism, because, you know, the greedy business owner, the greedy fat cat. And it's like, yeah, a lot of them are greedy, but also couldn't you say the same thing about the minimum wage debate, right? the nature of greed is wanting more than you actually deserve. Okay, that's kind of the basic premise of greed. And so yeah, a lot of CEOs and just business owners out there probably are greedy to an extent, but I could say I would say the same exact thing about people who want a wage that is more than the labor that they are worth, more than their labor is worth, I should say. So many such cases on that front. And you might say, well, how can someone who is poor and bagging groceries possibly be greedy if they don't have enough? Well, clearly they're making some type of living, even if it's not a great living. My point is not just in terms of material wealth. The basic idea of greed is wanting more than you deserve, right? Or, you know what I mean? That's the way I would at least define it. And so I think it's true not just of the fat cat capitalists. I think it's true of ordinary people too, as much as they don't want to admit it. But to answer the question, basically, strongly agree. I definitely believe in that. All right, question number 5. Exploitation, quote unquote, is an outdated term, as the struggles of 1800s capitalism don't exist anymore. By the way, guys, whether you're watching live or on the replay, be sure to leave a like right now on the stream. Have you left a like, huh? You think just because I'm not live, I'm not going to grift and remind you that you have to leave a like? Leave a like on the stream. And again, feel free to send in a super chat if you want to support. All right, exploitation is an outdated term, as the struggles of 1800s capitalism don't exist anymore. I mean, there is I'm going to say neutral, because there is genuine exploitation that happens in the world, and you know, obviously we should use the term exploitation. The reason I'd say neutral is because I think it's very overused, right? It's very exaggerated. Like every working condition that's just not the best, you know what I mean, that just has generally difficult conditions, we kind of label it all blanketly as exploitation, and I see that happen a lot. And a lot of times it's like, that's not exploitation, that's just the nature of the job they work. And in third world countries, for instance, right? Sure, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of genuine exploitation and bad stuff that happens in third world countries. But a lot of the times, it's not even a matter of that. It's simply a matter of, oh, well, you know, people make less money in that country than we do in our country. They have a lower living standard because they're a developing country, right? That's kind of just the nature. Like, your grandfather working in the factory in the United States was having to deal with a similar life, right? So I don't know if I would label that exploitation, but I would say that, like, genuine exploitation, genuine coerced labor, obviously, like, that is exploitation. So I'm gonna say neutral because, like I said, I think it's real, but I think it's very overplayed or overused. As the example I talked about earlier, oh, the person bagging groceries who doesn't make a lot of money because it takes a person with an IQ of 10 to do their job, and there's no skill in it, or uniqueness, or something that not everyone else could do. Them being paid $10 an hour is not exploitation. It's the nature of the labor they work. All right, question number 6. Communism is an ideal that could never work in practice. Strongly agree. And the reason why communism cannot work in practice is because human beings are naturally hierarchical, right? And generally speaking, in most societies, in one way or another, the elite, the powerful, the people who are kind of designed psychologically to be at the top, very often do end up in some way making it to the top. And so communism comes along and says, that's actually not right. The worker who doesn't know how to start the factory, doesn't know how to manage business, doesn't know how to manage money, he should be the one in charge of the factory because he does so much work. And who's this businessman to know anything? How do we know he knows anything? But in reality, what you often find in terms of human nature is that he does know something, right? There is a hierarchy to human beings, and when you try to reject or invert that hierarchy, you end up with, you know, a disaster and famine and many such problems. So strongly agree. Communism cannot work because human beings are naturally hierarchical. All right. All right, let's see here. Question number 7. Taxation of the wealthy is a bad idea. Society would be better off without it. Why do we have to say taxation of the wealthy? Can we just say taxation is... I mean, taxation to some degree is necessary. You need some level of taxes, but can we just rail against taxes in general? Why has it got to be taxation of the wealthy? You know? Like, I want to say agree just to say screw taxes, but again, why is it fixated on taxation of the wealthy? I just think taxes should be lower. Can we just say that? Why is it got to be taxation of the wealthy? You know what? Screw it. Why not? I agree. Get mad. The harder you work, the more you progress up the social ladder. I don't think this is always necessarily true, because you can work very hard at being a person who bags groceries. You can be the best grocery bagger in the world. You can work every day, every single shift. And don't get me wrong, you will make some more money, but you're never really going to truly progress up the social ladder all that much, because it's not just about how hard you work, right? You can work really hard at building. You can build an anthill, and you can work really hard at building anthills out of the dirt. You can work really hard at shoveling dirt and digging a hole. You can work all your life at that and be really hard. You're not going to progress up the social ladder because what you do or what you're working hard at does not generate value, right? And so I think if you work hard and smart and you do the right thing, or you learn the skills, or you figure out a way to provide value and increase your value, then you progress up the social ladder. So I can't say strongly agree, because it's not just about how hard you work. People say, oh, just work hard. Yeah, obviously work hard at everything you do. But like I said, you can't just bag groceries all your life and expect to become a millionaire by working hard, right? You have to work smart. You have to do something that does generate value and creates more value for yourself. And so I'll put agree, because it is true. You need to work hard to progress up the social ladder. Unless you're born into money, there's no way around that. But I will say, I won't say strongly agree, because I think it's more than just hard work. But I will say I agree. All right. All right. Question number 9. Organizations and corporations cannot be trusted and need to be regulated by the government. In some cases, yeah. Hold on. Let me get a drink. I'm thirsty. Okay. There are situations in which this is true. Environmental stuff, sometimes to an extent, you need clauses that, they won't break the law. You go against. So I'll say, I agree. It is true. Is it overdone in America? Yes. Is America and the West in general very overregulated, very nanny state unnecessarily in a lot of ways? Yes, but it is true that you do need some level of basic organization and regulation by the government. So I'll say I agree. A government that provides for everyone is an inherently good idea. No, it just never works. Why should the government provide for everyone? And if the government's providing for everyone, then who is providing for the government? Anyone ever think of this, right? Oh, the government should give me a free life, blah, blah, blah. Who funds the government? How's the government funded? Oops, my bad. I didn't mean to do that. How would that even work? Hold on. How would that even work? So strongly disagree. And we know every time they try to do this, it doesn't end up well. People don't actually work and create for themselves, and the government goes broke, or the society goes broke. There's nothing on the shelf for obvious reasons. But also, fundamentally, who's going to provide for the government? If everyone's sitting around being provided for, how does the government get its money? Exactly. Strongly disagree. The current welfare system should be expanded. There's a lot of economic questions to start off. The current welfare system should be expanded to further combat inequality. I strongly disagree. The current welfare system needs to be shrunk drastically. It is a disaster. It is obviously bankrupting the country in many ways. And what does it do? Oh, it's solving poverty. Is it really? Because I look around, all these welfare people, they're not moving up the social ladder. They're just sitting around collecting unemployment. They don't do anything. They're useless. They're leeches. They're leeches off the government. And I know some conservatives are starting to kind of adopt this idea. Oh, we need to use the welfare state within our own favor. And perhaps, if you want to figure out a way to incentivize families or help create families, sure. But the current welfare system should be expanded? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All it is giving a bunch of bums a bunch of money to sit around and do nothing and smoke weed and then do Medicaid fraud and buy BMWs with it. Many such cases, okay? So the current welfare system should be destroyed entirely. Now, if you want to figure out some proposal to replace it, I'm all ears. But no, it should not be expanded to combat inequality. It's not combating inequality. It's just giving a bunch of poor people who otherwise should be out working and, you know, moving themselves up. Instead, it just gives them a safety net to sit around and smoke pot. So strongly disagree. Question number 12. Land should not be a commodity to be bought and sold. So basically this idea that like land should be free or land should be guaranteed. That's again a disaster, right? If it's not going to be a commodity to be bought and sold, then what will it be? Because you think about it, land naturally is a commodity. Land is scarce, land is finite, land has value to us as human beings. There are uses for the land. So what else are you going to do to it besides commoditize it? What is that a word? Commoditize? It's a natural resource. Land is a resource. So what else are you going to do with it? You know? Now, hypothetically, you could do what, you know, they did in Pol Pot's Cambodia and say, oh, well, we're going to like create the state will own the land and we'll decide. Is that what you want? You want the Biden administration to figure out how much land you deserve or own or whatever? You know, you don't want to be able to buy your own house, choose to live where you want to live, because that's the alternative. Think about that. Oh, well, why should people be homeless? Blah, blah, blah. So the alternative you propose is instead of having land, again, be bought and sold, so that way you can choose where you want to live, you can buy your house, you can own your house. Instead, you have a state bureaucracy deciding where you deserve to live and forcing you to live where you want to live. See, you want to talk about, oh, well, capitalism's so evil. Understand this. The alternative of it would be the government literally picking and choosing where you live and telling you that's what you deserve, and you have no say in that. Is that what you want? All like the socialist teenagers who LARP so much about this, and they grow up in some suburban home. Do you realize that if land were not a commodity to be bought and sold, they could kick you out there and put you in some like dry field out in the middle of nowhere with no resources, which you would hate because you're so addicted to being around other people and cities and urbanization, all that. They could literally just force you to live in a place you don't want to live and you would hate and despise, and then you would and then you wouldn't be able to do anything about it, because land is not a commodity to be bought and sold. It's just the state or the collective deciding where to use the land. They could move you in and make you live with other people that you don't even want to live with. Like, what kind of that is a nightmare dystopian existence. Land absolutely needs to be a commodity to be bought and sold. The alternative of it is a nightmare. I want to own property. You should want to own property. We should be able to own property and be able to choose where and how we want to buy the property, okay? So, all right, here we go. All industry and the bank should be nationalized. I strongly disagree with that. I mean, there are some industries in some ways that need to be partially nationalized or state-controlled. For instance, you know, the roads, like who's going to do that or whatever. But generally speaking, it's not efficient. It's not generally that good to have all your industry nationalized. It's not efficient. It doesn't go well. And see, here's the other thing too. Here's a big reason why nationalized industry is very often so inefficient. And you know why? You look at societies that have tried it. The USSR tried it. China tried it. Do you notice? Now, obviously, the Soviet Union ended up collapsing. But even, you know, leading up to that, what was happening for decades is they began to privatize more and more. China now is privatizing more and more, right? They always figure this out or find this out because, like I said, government nationalized industry in general is just not very efficient or effective. And a big reason for that is think about how the government operates. A government, perhaps it should be, but generally speaking, because the government has its guaranteed tax base and whatnot, governments are not, you know, they're not for-profit businesses. They don't have a profit incentive. And so when they're working with their nationalized industry, the nationalized industries do not have profit incentives either. Because very often it's just based on quotas, right? It's just, hey, here's the quota, produce this quota, and the quota is totally made up and arbitrary or whatever it is. And so very often what has happened in nationalized industry in all these other countries is it just becomes this quota thing. Oh, well, we produce this much, we can cheat, we can undercut. Just tell the government we got it done and we'll get our guaranteed paycheck. Why create more? Because the government has a contract. You get this amount of money and just meet this quota, and that's it. So they don't produce more. They don't work to innovate their product. None of that, because it's all this just flat fee of, hey, you fulfill this quota, we'll give you the money. Now, that's not how the private sector works. When you're in a market economy, that's not how it works, right? You have to be improving your product. You have to be figuring out the ideal amount to sell and create and produce. You have to be production, all that stuff, because your goal is to make your product as best and as efficient as possible, so that way customers will buy it. But when the government's just out here saying, you create 100 pencils, we'll just pay you this amount of money. All you got to do is create 100 pencils. You can get the same amount of money regardless of how good the pencils are. The government's still going to pay you. Sorry, I have the freaking hiccups right now. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I've been like the whole time, I'm like, I should have put a glass of water here. That was a big mistake, chat. Big mistake. But yeah, so this is the case. That is why nationalized industry never, literally never works ever. Okay. Class is the primary division of society. So this is the basic tenet of Karl Marx, right? He believed there was going to be this big class revolution. All the peasants of the world, or the proletariat, would rise up. And this is simply just not true. We observe just look around in America. The biggest division in our society is probably race, right? Now, you hear people say this very often, especially people on the right. They'll say, well, you think about it, there's this big race divide in America, but a working class black guy and a working class white guy actually share a lot in common socioeconomically. They have a lot of similar problems. Why don't they unite? Why is there such a big race divide in America? And perhaps that is true, right? Perhaps it's true to an extent. Hey, in an idealized world, well, why is this even a division? But I don't know. I suppose it's just the reality of human nature. We are far more divided among tribes, among racial, national, ethnic lines. Human beings naturally fight each other way more over those things than they do over class. And perhaps that should not be the case. Perhaps, there's something to be said about that. But I'm just reflecting what the primary division of society is in terms of human nature, and it is absolutely not class, right? It is in America, I would argue it's race. In a lot of different countries, it's ethnicity or whatever it is. In the world, the primary division is nationality, right? Look at World War I. World War I is the big kind of moment that this basic idea of Marx was discredited, because Marx predicted that the next great war would be a global, worldwide communist revolution. All the proletariat of the world would rise up against the industrialists, rise up against the capitalists. And instead, the next great war that ended up happening was not that at all. It was instead what? It was, World War I, and it was along national and, in a sense, ethnic lines. And so I strongly disagree. It's just simply not true. Class is not the primary division of society whatsoever. All right. Question number 15. Economic inequality is too high in the world. I mean, I suppose, but also, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? It is kind of the nature of the world. And if you want to fix it, then, get the poor stuff to start creating economic value. I mean, I don't know. Neutral, I guess. Okay, question 16. Sometimes let's speed up the questions a little bit, because I'm trying to get this exactly in an hour, but we're actually a little behind, which means I've been doing good on time. But okay. Question 16. Sometimes it is right that the government may spy on its citizens to combat extremists and terrorists. I mean, I suppose in a very absolute sense, yes, but in America, I don't trust the American regime to do any of this stuff. The Patriot Act, disaster, all of this. I would rather be unsafe and not have the NSA and the Patriot Act and all this digital surveillance by our government. So I'm going to say disagree. Now, perhaps in a society where you can just generally trust the system, maybe a little bit more of that is okay. But even then, I don't know. I don't trust our regime whatsoever. Okay. Question number 17. Authority figures, if morally correct, are a good thing for society. I absolutely strongly agree with that. Like I said, let's go back to the reason I said that communism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work because human beings, right, are hierarchical. If human beings naturally obey a hierarchy, then there are always going to be authority figures. You can spare me your whole like punk rock little, no gods, no masters, I don't care, I don't listen to anyone. Yeah, in some way you do though. Everyone does, right? There are authority figures in society, again, because human beings are obedient to hierarchy. Every society is going to have authority figures, and so it is a good thing if those authority figures are good, right? If society has good people that they look up to, and good people in a society have moral authority and credibility. So strongly agree. You need authority figures, and so they might as well be good authority figures. Strongly agree. All right, question number 18. Strength is necessary for any government to succeed. Well, I strongly agree with that, because if government can be as idealistic as you want it to be. It can have the best constitution. It can have all the right laws. If it cannot enforce its laws, then it's a useless government. And so I strongly agree with that. It doesn't matter how good the people in the government are. If you can't enforce it, then what government is that? All right. Question number 19. Only government can fairly and effectively regulate organizations. I mean, I disagree with that. I think there are other ways that you can effectively regulate organizations, I guess. So, I don't know if only the government can do that. All right, question number 20. Society requires structure and bureaucracy in order to function. Sorry. All right, is it finally freaking... I just ate. That's the issue here. Okay, society needs structure and bureaucracy in order to function. I mean, you need it to some degree. I think America's bureaucracy is way too big. It is very excessive, but you do need it to some extent. So I agree. Mandatory IDs should be used to ensure public safety. I guess I generally agree with this. Now, some people might say, well, that's a little bit authoritarian, civil state, whatever. I mean, I guess, but it's the 21st century. What are you going to do? Everyone has to have an ID. And then the other thing I would say, it's not really about public safety for me. A lot of it, think about how big of an illegal immigration problem the United States has, right? That's the big reason. I like the number one reason I think we need mandatory IDs. Our country has what, 20 million illegal immigrants, whatever the estimate is. We need a way to be able to track who is in our country. And so that's the primary reason I would say, obviously, you should have to have an ID to vote, all of that stuff. Every country on earth these days has a mandatory IDs, unless you're like Somalia. So yeah, you could argue as a libertarian, oh well, no, that's a civil liberties, whatever. But I mean, let's be real. Everyone has a driver's license. Like, what are you gonna do? Oops, my bad. Okay, so agree. In times of crisis, safety becomes more important than civil liberties. So again, in an absolute sense, like yeah, if Godzilla, okay, so if Godzilla comes out of the ocean and he's just destroying all of San Francisco, maybe the first thing to do should be to just figure out a way to take out Godzilla. Okay, so this is a statement that in absolute truth, in real crisis, I would actually argue is true. The problem is, in the United States, again, this is just never how it goes, right? What do? They manufacture crisis. They manufacture crisis and use it as a pretext to take away our civil liberties. Many such cases. We know the story. We know how it goes. So I'm going to say disagree. In an absolute sense, like I said, if Godzilla was really coming out of the ocean and, we had to take out Godzilla, then I would say yes. But, all right. Question number 23. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Strongly disagree. There's a lot of evil people out there, And again, as a Christian, I believe in the fallen state of man. I believe in wicked human nature. And so if you have nothing to hide, you're a perfectly good person. That's not nearly enough to say you have nothing to fear. What do you have to be afraid of? You have to be afraid of the fact that even if you are a clean person, human beings in general do not have a clean nature. And so you should always have something to fear. Strongly disagree. Mankind is mankind. All right, question number 24. The government should be less involved in the day-to-day life of its citizens. So I generally think this is true in the United States, but then there's ways in which the government is not involved at all that I think they should be totally involved, right? If that makes sense. See, I don't think the government in the United States should be so hawkish about us. You can't fish there. You can't kill more than 7 squirrels when you're going hunting. You know, you can't collect rainwater. You can't drive over 70 on the interstate. Like, there's so many petty, stupid ways in the United States in which the government is just a nanny state. It's just a total nanny state. Hey, you gotta do this for paperwork and many such cases. And so, generally, in an overall net sense, yes, I think in the United States, the government should be less involved. But then I also look at certain aspects of the U.S. government, and I'm like, where is the government being involved? The government should be involved to step in and protect children from, you know, wicked people, as we know. The government should be saving the lives of babies and be protecting the right to human life of babies. And so, like I said, there are ways in which I think the government is not involved at all, that they should be involved, but then in most ways the government is involved nowadays of the petty normal BS. Hey, you can't do that. The government's very over involved in our life, right? You can't, you want to start a business? Here, fill out these 10,000 forms and then do all this tax nonsense. So I'm going to say neutral, because there's ways in which, again, I think they need to be totally involved that they're not, and then ways that they shouldn't be involved at all that they're totally involved in. So I'm going to say neutral on that front. All right. We got Zachary in chat. He just said no. No to what? I don't know. All right, without a democracy, society is nothing. That's just stupid. Societies existed for thousands of years before democracy, buddy. Just saying. Without a society, the Roman Empire is nothing. Without democracy. Without democracy, the Roman Empire is nothing. It's not a society. Oh, without democracy, the Persian Empire is not valid because it's not it's not democratic. Most societies in human history have not been democracies. Just saying, okay? Take that as you will. Not saying anything there. I'm just saying that you can absolutely have a society without democracy, okay? And there's a case to be made. Democracy is one of actually the least stable ways to structure a society. There's a reason why most societies in human history have actually not been democracies. Just saying. Just saying. Strongly disagree. Jury nullification should be legal. So this is basically the idea that a jury can see all the evidence that someone is guilty of a crime, but then still choose not to convict them because they don't agree with the law, right? And so generally speaking, I don't think this should be a thing, because I think the job of a jury in most cases should simply be, are you guilty of breaking the law or not? And so that's my initial thought. But I also think about this, well, what about like really stupid laws, right? But I guess in most cases those won't go to a jury. But let's just say, for example, we have another stupid law, like you can't collect rainwater. Hey, if you collect a bucket of rainwater, or you peel off the mattress tag, right? Let's just say hypothetically there's a law where if you peel off the mattress tag, you get life in prison. Jury nullification would say, well, people just think it's stupid, so let's just nullify the law. There's a case to be made there that in that sense it should be legal, and especially if there's a lot of stupid laws on the books, then juries should have the kind of be able to exercise the discernment in some cases to nullify laws. And so I'm going to say neutral on this front, right? Like, I can see the case for it. I generally don't think it should be a thing, but for very ridiculous laws, maybe it should be a thing. So I'm going to say neutral. Okay, question 27. The smaller the government, the freer the people. In an ideal world, yes, right? This was true for a lot of American history because we had good people. Left to their own devices, they did good things. The government didn't need to get involved, whatever. I'm going to say neutral. I don't know if this is always the case, though, right? I don't know if this is always the case. Because if you have let's say Iraq, okay? What happened when the government got smaller in Iraq? Did the society become freer when we took out Saddam Hussein? Or was it a very like divided and fractured society that when the government became smaller, when it became no longer there, they actually just all started killing each other, right? Somalia, same thing. When that government got smaller, did the society become more free? Or did warlords just take over everything? And so I'm going to say neutral. I think it really depends on the people. If it's you know, the people of 1781, yeah, I mean, there's a reason the U.S. government used to not have to be so big for a long time. But if it's Iraq, oh, let's take out the dictator, smaller government. Yeah, that worked out great, didn't it? So, neutral. All right. Question 28. The government should, at most, provide emergency services and law enforcement. I strongly disagree with that. I think there are more functions to government than simply that. You know, I'm not a total totalitarian idealistically in any sense, but I think the government goes beyond that. All right, question 29. The police were not created to protect the people, but to uphold the status quo by force. I mean, both of these things are true in my opinion. Yes, it is functionally speaking the job of law enforcement to uphold the status quo. Don't get me wrong, they're enforcement agents of the state. But also, at least they were designed, they were created to also protect the people from crime. So it's like both, right? You know what I mean? They're both true. But I'm gonna say disagree because it's kind of, I don't know, it sounds like a left-wing question, doesn't it? Okay, state schools. Question number 30. Almost done here. State schools are a bad idea because our state shouldn't be influencing our children. So here's the thing. The current public school system sucks, obviously. It has a lot of problems. But if you didn't have state schools, what would you have instead? Oh, everyone homeschools. Now it's all homeschooling and community schooling. I don't disagree. I also believe that would be the ideal situation. That ideally is what should be the case. I 100% agree. But also you have to consider modern society. It's just simply not the case in modern day that everyone can homeschool their children. Now, I absolutely encourage, if you can homeschool your children and you have the means to do it, then absolutely do it. But what do you do for the millions of American children where that is just not a possibility? That's just not a reality that can happen. You have to have some degree of public education unless you're just going to send all the kids to work and do child labor. If you're not going to do that, then you have to have some degree of public education. And so what else would you have besides state schools? And so my take on the education question is this. I think if you can homeschool your kids, if you're a conservative Christian like you or I, right, then yeah, I mean, you know, homeschool, do all that stuff. But I also think we should not just disregard anything that happens in the public education system. Oh, well, just homeschool your kids. Okay, but what about everyone in society who can't do that? You're just going to basically leave your whole country out to dry while you just personally homeschool your own kids? Of course, the public education system matters. Of course, like we have to do something about it. I'm going to say I disagree with this. You need, I mean, like what would be the alternative? Not to have public education? We have to have public education. So, or something like it, something modeling it. You could reform it. There are many reforms that need to be made, and we should change the teaching of public education so they stop teaching all this nonsense. But I think you do need some degree of state education. Otherwise, what's the alternative, right? All right. Question 31. Two consenting individuals should be able to do whatever they want with each other, even if it makes me uncomfortable. Here's the thing. I disagree with the premise of this question, because if it's making me uncomfortable, that means it is in the public eye, right? If two, for instance, gay men, you know, if they just go and sodomize each other in total secrecy, then why would that make me uncomfortable? I don't even know that it's happening. I never saw or heard about it happening, right? But the basic suggestion that it is making me uncomfortable means it is shoved in my face, right? Or in some way it is being projected to the world. And I absolutely think that you know, that it shouldn't be that way. I do believe that sex in general, and I think this is really where America went wrong before all of this stuff, is that sex generally, obviously, you know, society used to be more Christian and had more Christian moral values. And so, you know, there's a lot more people saying abstain, wait till marriage, this and that. But, I mean, human beings are human beings. People have been having sex for a very long time and out of marriage, all that stuff. That stuff all absolutely also used to happen back in the day. People had affairs, people, you know, premarital sex, all that stuff. The difference between then and now is that sex in general was considered something that is private and intimate, right? And so, you know, it just wasn't, you didn't shout to the world what your body count was or that you had sex with this person. Certainly not that you're gay and you're going around having gay sex. Like, that just was never something that was historically seen as relevant to the public eye or within the public eye, okay? I think whole scale that is the way it should be. I don't think pride marches should exist at all whatsoever. Not just because I disagree with it, but I'm also, to an extent, I'm like, why is sexuality in any way something that should be seen to the public eye or discussed in the public eye, right? And the thing is, this is still the way it is in a lot of non-Western countries. You go to a lot of non-Western countries who, you know, supposedly they're so repressive or whatever towards gay people. Maybe to an extent, whatever. But also, a large degree of it is that those societies just view sex as a private matter. And so you never hear about pride marches or whatever happening in your face because these people don't talk about it or push it openly, which they shouldn't be doing. So I'm going to say disagree with this question. I don't agree with its premise because, again, if it's making me uncomfortable, that means it's being projected to the public eye. And I just simply think that there is a great virtue to privacy. There's a great virtue to privacy that has simply been forgotten by the modern world that needs to be restored, you know? So, all right. Question 32. Again, feel free to leave a like on the stream. Be sure to leave a like on the stream. Be sure to do that, okay? Question 32. An individual's body is their own property, and they should be able to do anything they desire to it. So they should be able to kill themselves. They should be able to chop off their arms. I actually strongly disagree with that. Because first of all, I don't believe an individual's body is their own property. I believe, first and foremost, our bodies belong to God. They are the creation of God. But, you know, beyond that point, no, I don't think you should just be able to do anything you desire to your body. And certainly the premise of this question is probably a pro-choice thing, but even beyond that, I don't think you should be able to kill yourself. I don't think you should be able to chop off your arm or, you know, whatever. Okay, a person should be able to worship whomever or whatever they want. See, I don't believe in forcing anyone to be Christian, right? I don't believe in proselytizing by force or any of that. I don't believe that creates a genuine conversion. At the same time, is Satanism really and this is what I'm thinking of in particular, is Satanism really protected by the First Amendment? Would the Founding Fathers have believed that Satanism was a free exercise of the First Amendment? I don't know. I tend to lean no. Some probably would maybe argue more so yes. You know, but I don't know. And then furthermore, I mean, I believe in religious liberty as a concept, but I also think that America as a kind of society and a culture was set up to be a society primarily of and for Christians. Not that non-Christians can't live in it, hence the First Amendment, but just the idea that the overarching society was designed to be Christian. So I'm gonna say neutral because I generally, like, again, I don't believe in forcing anyone to be Christian, but I also don't think that Satanism is protected by the First Amendment. So I'm gonna say neutral. Okay, nudism is perfectly natural. Question 24. No, it's not natural. Being nude, no, it's my natural body. You know how we know it's not natural? We know it is not natural because if human beings were naked all the time, we don't have enough body hair, as you see. We don't have enough body hair to just be nude all the time. Because if we were nude all the time, then all of us would basically freeze to death in the night, right? Or, you know, I'm not going to say get sunburned, because a lot of the reason we get sunburned is because of seed oil and all that stuff. But we know because human beings naturally need to have clothing on or they get cold. You think other animals with a bunch of fur do that? No. So we can biologically demonstrate that it is not perfectly natural. Strongly disagree. I don't want to see you walking around naked in my society anyway. Question 35. Animals deserve certain universal rights. To an extent, yes, like I don't believe in animal cruelty, but I still don't believe that even in itself is a universal right. And it's a vegan question anyway, so I'm going to say I disagree. Question 36. Gender is a social construct, not a natural state of affairs. Yeah, shut up. Of course, it's a natural state of affairs. Gender is biological, not, social. Strongly disagree. All right, question 37. Law based on cultural values rather than ethical ones aren't justice. I strongly disagree with this because, first of all, the ethics, I mean, I do believe obviously in universal ethics, universal morality, but the way that a society interprets ethics and morality is based on their culture, right? And furthermore, I absolutely think that societies have the right to be able to come together and decide, this is what we believe as a culture. This is what we believe as a society. It is our country. We are a sovereign nation and society. We have the right, if we want to be able to enact that belief into law or reflect law in some way. So I absolutely believe that laws can be based on cultural values, and that's just how all societies tend to actually function and operate in reality. So I will say law aren't justice. Strongly disagree. Okay, question 38. Autonomy of body extends to even minors, the mentally ill, and serious criminals. No, I strongly disagree with that. Obviously, minors, you know, shouldn't be allowed to just make all their own medical decisions or whatever. Oh, you know, I'm 10 years old and I feel transgender. Can you mutilate me? You know, I don't think that should be allowed at all whatsoever. In terms of the mentally ill, again, so if they want to kill themselves or they're doing all this self-harm, you're not allowed to step in. And then in terms of serious criminals, no, I believe the death penalty should be an option. So, strongly disagree. Question 39. Homosexuality is against my values. Well, I am a Christian, so yes, strongly agree. It is against my values. Transgender individuals, question number 40, should not be able to adopt children. They should not be able to. Strongly agree. I do not think trans should be able to adopt children. Children need a mother and father, right? Ideally, they have both, a real mother and a real father. But the last thing they need is someone who is corrupting and confusing them to have basically neither of those things. So, strongly agree. Question 41. Drugs are harmful and should be banned. This might be a hot take with some people, but I actually do agree with this. Okay? Oh, but who is it hurting? I know, again, maybe this goes back to cultural values, whatever, but maybe I would argue maybe they are ethical, but doesn't matter. Why? Why should I want my society to be full of potheads or people on crack or whatever it is? Like, why? Why? Hold on, there's water right here. I'm sorry, I need water. Give me a second. I just found a water bottle sitting here. Wow, I've been parched this entire stream. That feels so unbelievably better. We're so back. We're so back. So maybe that's a hot take, but I actually agree with that. All right, question 42. The death penalty should exist for certain crimes. Strongly agree. I know some Christians argue we shouldn't have the death penalty because we should give people the maximum time to repent, which I understand that argument. I think it's a fair argument. At the same time, the death penalty is endorsed and permitted in the Bible itself, right? There were laws on the book of ancient Israel. They came straight from God, so, you know, there's that. And then also it's just like function. Yes, you should try to evangelize every criminal on death row. Don't get me wrong. But at a certain point, how just as a society, we can't keep them on death row forever. We can't just like to some point you have to just give justice to these people, in my opinion. So that's my stance on that. All right, question 43. Victimless crimes should still be punished. I mean, but all crimes have a victim, though. That's a thing. Even if the victim, I don't really believe in such a thing as a victimless crime, at least because there's always a victim, or at least there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess victimless crimes in the sense you literally did nothing and the state just threw you in jail. Zachary says they should be decriminalized. You should not punish those who already suffer from their decisions. Well, nobody is saying to, you know, a person has a drug addiction. That's what we have rehab for. But the thing is, if you decriminalize them, that would also mean that you decriminalize dealers. And so unless the drug itself is illegal, how are you going to persecute drug dealers? How are you going to go like that's the thing. Yeah, I don't think we should just lock up random stoners, but I do think that unless it is criminalized in some way, it's very hard to actually go after that. So, okay. All right. Victimless crimes should still be punished. Neutral, I guess. I don't know. Question 44. One cannot be moral without religion. I mean, as a Christian, I believe the answer is yes. One cannot be moral without religion, because the basic premise of our faith is that no human being is moral, right? None of us are righteous in the eyes of God. And so, you know, it is only through our faith in Christ that our deep immorality can be redeemed. And so I do believe personally that you can believe in moral things. You can still be a generally, at least relative to others, a quote unquote good person in that sense. You know, you're not someone I strongly distrust or think is horrible, whatever. But I do believe that, you know, as a Christian, again, that this is kind of a basic premise of our faith, is that none of us are naturally moral in ourselves. So I strongly agree with that. All right, almost done here with the test. Can we finish in a few minutes here? All right. Parents should hold absolute power over their children as they're older and more experienced. I mean, I generally agree with this, but I do think children should have like guaranteed rights by the state. They should have protections, etc., etc. So I'm not going to say strongly agree, because there are exceptions. There are ways in which children should be protected and guaranteed protections. But I generally think this is true. I generally think that, you know, the parent should be in charge. So agree. All right, question 46. Multiculturalism is bad. Strongly agree. Multiculturalism is not a strength. We've talked about this a million times, but diversity, quote unquote, is not a strength. So strongly agree. All right, let's see our results. Here we go. We ready? Did you complete this test in a serious manner? Yes. Should we fill out the survey? Let's fill out the survey. How would you classify yourself as? I guess generally authoritarian, right? How would you classify yourself as? Authoritarian, rightist, centrist, leftist, libertarian? I guess a rightist. How do you view yourself on culture? I would consider myself very conservative. How do you view yourself on economics? I would say right. You guys might notice this. I've been becoming more and more economically right-wing as I get older and actually make money. Now, I started off that way, and then in the middle of high school, you have like your populist phase where you're all about, you know, basically like, you know, populist economics, all that stuff. But I'd say nowadays, I'm not very right, but I'd say I'm like right on economics probably. Okay, how do you view yourself on authority? I'd say I lean authoritarian. What label would you give to your ideology? I don't like these stupid labels, but I guess I'd probably be considered a paleo-conservative, old right? Pre-World War II, ideologically conservative. What is my gender? Clearly a two-spirit penguin, so the answer is other. I'm a male. I'm gonna say 20. I'm almost 20. I turned 20 in a few days, by the way. 8 days, okay? Happy birthday, Vince. Okay. What religion do you adhere to? I am Christian. What country do you live in? I live in the United States, which is not popping up for some reason on the stream, but that's fine. United States. All right. Do I focus on STEM or the humanities? I lean humanities. I'd probably say I am humanities. I do politics. What best describes your status? I'm an employed student. I am currently in college. I live in a small city or town. Doxing myself. How physically active are you? Does 400 push-ups a day count as work? Fine, I'll just say yes. There you go. So there are the results. Now, I don't know how to compare this because it's the first time I've taken the test, but as you can see, very conservative on the social axis, authoritarian right. I'm, as you can see, probably getting like more right-wing on the economic questions. The social axis is still about the same. All right, but there you have it. There's my SappyValues political compass, as you can see. Very conservative. About there. So, yeah. There you have it, folks. I don't know how to react. I guess that's more... I mean, if I were to plot myself, if you're looking at the mouse, I'd probably put myself, like, probably about, like, right here or there. But, I mean, it's a test. It's all good. I'm not shockingly disappointed by the results. So, yeah. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's the SappyValues political test. Thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. Again, we will be live once again tomorrow with the show. And so I'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time with the return of the regular Vince Dow show. If you did tune into this premiere, thank you very much. I'll see you again live tomorrow night. And before we go, any last super chats you want to send in? Again, I'll try to get to them tomorrow. Hopefully I can get them back. But yeah, until then, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to join us tomorrow. And thank you to all who tuned in. Until next time, folks. Alpha moves only. God bless and peace. See you guys tomorrow night. Live again.